The Mafia boss saw his black maid struggles and offered her a new life. Jasmine Carter had worked tirelessly at the Romano estate for the past 2 years. Every morning, she woke up early, took a deep breath, and got ready for another long day of cleaning the sprawling mansion. The estate, with its marble floors and elegant chandeliers, stood as a symbol of wealth and power. But for Jasmine, it was nothing more than a place where she was invisible. She was just another face in the crowd, a maid, someone whose name was barely remembered. But she was used to that. She had learned to become invisible, to keep her head down, to endure. It wasn't that she didn't have dreams, she did, but dreams didn't belong in this world. The world she lived in was one where survival mattered more than anything else. As she dusted off the intricate furniture in the grand sitting room, she couldn't help but glance at the grand portraits on the wall. They were all members of the Romano family, rich, powerful, and untouchable. Jasmine had never been close to them, but she had seen them around. Dominic Romano, the youngest mafia boss in the family, was the one who owned this mansion. He was a man of few words, yet his presence could fill any room. She had heard rumors about him, how he ruled with an iron fist and commanded respect without saying much. And yet, there were moments when she wondered if he ever saw the people who worked for him. Was he aware of her existence? Jasmine doubted it. She had always tried to stay out of his way, knowing her place in this world. But today, something felt different. As she moved from room to room, cleaning and tidying up, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. It wasn't until she entered the kitchen, preparing lunch for the family, that she saw him. Dominic Romano stood in the doorway, his dark eyes fixed on her. For a brief moment, she froze. Was he going to say something? Was he upset with her? But instead of speaking, he simply observed her. His gaze was intense, yet there was a hint of something she couldn't quite place. He seemed to be noticing her for the first time. It made her feel uneasy, but also seen. Jasmine quickly resumed her work, her heart pounding in her chest. Dominic didn't speak, but he didn't leave either. He just stood there, watching her with a quiet intensity that sent shivers down her spine. For the first time in 2 years, Jasmine wondered if her existence truly mattered to someone in this mansion. Was he seeing her pain? Seeing her struggles? As she chopped vegetables, she felt his gaze linger for a moment longer before he finally turned and walked away. But not before speaking a single sentence that would change everything. "You're doing fine, Jasmine." The words were simple, but to her, they felt like a lifeline. For the first time, someone had acknowledged her presence, her efforts. Little did Jasmine know, this moment would mark the beginning of a change that would turn her life upside down. Dominic Romano, the powerful mafia boss, had noticed her, and what he did next would offer her a chance at a new life. The next day, Jasmine woke up with a strange sense of anticipation. It wasn't that anything had changed overnight, but something inside her felt different. As she went about her morning routine, the words Dominic had said to her the day before echoed in her mind. Asterisk, "You're doing fine, Jasmine." Asterisk, it was a simple sentence, but the way he had looked at her, the way he acknowledged her presence, it made her feel like she mattered. She hadn't realized how much she had been craving that validation, that recognition. It was as if, for a brief moment, someone had seen her for who she truly was. A woman who worked tirelessly, who sacrificed so much for others. A woman who had dreams, even if they seemed impossible in this world of power and wealth. Jasmine knew her place in this mansion. She was a maid, nothing more. She had accepted that long ago. But now, for the first time, she wondered if that had to be all she was. As the day went on, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Her chores felt different, less mundane, as though every action had a greater purpose. She worked with an intensity she hadn't felt before, her mind constantly drifting back to the brief encounter with Dominic. She tried to focus on the tasks at hand, but her thoughts kept wandering back to him. Dominic Romano, the powerful, mysterious man, who controlled everything in this mansion, in this world. The man whose mere presence could silence a room. He had never shown any interest in her, not until yesterday. And even then, his words were simple, almost casual. Asterisk, "You're doing fine, Jasmine." Asterisk, but to her, they meant everything. She found herself wondering about him. What kind of man was he, really? The rumors about Dominic were endless. Some said he was ruthless, a man with no conscience, capable of anything to maintain his empire. Others whispered that there was more to him, that behind the cold, calculating exterior, there was a man who cared deeply for those he loved. Jasmine didn't know what to believe. She didn't even know if she wanted to know. But what she did know was that something in her had shifted. She couldn't go back to being invisible, to being the person who simply faded into the background. She had to find out what this change meant. Later that afternoon, as Jasmine was cleaning one of the many lavish rooms, she heard footsteps approaching. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the sound of Dominic's boots on the marble floor. He was coming closer. She quickly turned her attention to the window, pretending not to notice him as he entered the room. Dominic's voice broke the silence. Jasmine. She froze. Her pulse quickened. Was he going to reprimand her for something? Had she done something wrong? She turned slowly, meeting his gaze. He was standing by the door, his arms crossed, watching her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It felt like the weight of the world had settled into the room. Finally, Dominic spoke again. I need you to do something for me. Jasmine blinked, surprised. Of course, sir. What do you need? I need you to come with me. There's something I want to show you. Jasmine's heart raced. Come with him? She had never been asked to go anywhere with him before. It was unheard of. But there was something in his eyes, something that made her feel both nervous and excited. She didn't know what to think. Was this a test? Was he about to fire her? Or worse, make her life even more difficult? Or was this something else entirely? Are you coming? Dominic asked, his voice steady, but there was a hint of something else in his tone. Jasmine nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, sir. She followed him through the grand halls of the mansion, her footsteps echoing as they walked side by side. It felt strange, walking with him like this, so close, yet so far apart. They didn't speak as they made their way to the back of the estate, where the garden was located. The air felt cooler here, the soft breeze rustling the leaves of the trees. When they reached the garden, Dominic stopped and turned to face her. I wanted to show you this, he said, gesturing to the beautifully manicured garden in front of them. This is where I come to think. Jasmine stared at the garden, feeling a sense of awe. It was beautiful, peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos of the mansion. It's lovely, she said softly. Dominic didn't reply right away. Instead, he took a step closer to her, his expression serious. Jasmine, I know things haven't been easy for you. I can see that. And I know you've been working hard, day in and day out. But you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to keep struggling in silence. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? Did he actually see her, see the struggles she had kept hidden for so long? I know what it's like to fight for what you want, Dominic continued. To sacrifice everything for the people you love. But there comes a point when you need to stop fighting alone. You deserve more than this life. Jasmine couldn't believe what she was hearing. Dominic Romano, the man who had ruled this mansion for years, was offering her something she had never dared to dream of. A chance at a new life. A life where she didn't have to be invisible. Where she didn't have to struggle just to survive. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with emotion. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to help you, Jasmine, he replied, his voice soft but firm. I want to offer you a chance to do more than just survive. I want to offer you a chance to live. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. She had never imagined this moment, never even dreamed it was possible. But here it was. And she knew, in that instant, that her life was about to change forever. As Dominic's words settled into the air around them, Jasmine felt a mix of disbelief and hope surge through her. Was this really happening? Was this man, the one who had always seemed so far out of reach, offering her a chance at a new life? Her mind raced with possibilities, but she couldn't quite grasp the full extent of what he was offering. She had been stuck in this cycle of hard work, invisible to those around her, but now Dominic Romano was offering her something more. A life. A real chance at something better. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. Words felt too small to capture the weight of the moment. She looked down at the perfectly manicured garden beneath her feet, the soft grass brushing against her shoes, and then back at him. Dominic was waiting, his expression steady but gentle. He wasn't rushing her, but there was an urgency in the air. He had made up his mind, and now it was her turn. Asterisk, what do you want from me? Asterisk, Jasmine finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic studied her for a moment, his gaze unwavering. Nothing, he replied simply. Asterisk, I just want to offer you the chance to live a life that's yours, Jasmine. No more being invisible. No more feeling like you have to struggle just to survive. You deserve more than that. Asterisk, the simplicity of his words hit her like a wave. She had never expected this kind of kindness, certainly not from someone like him. She had always thought of herself as just a maid, a part of the background, never important enough to matter to the powerful people around her. But Dominic's words felt different. They felt like a promise. And for the first time in her life, Jasmine wondered if she could actually have something more. But I don't know how to live any other way, she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. Asterisk, I've always been invisible. I don't know what it would be like to have a life that's mine. Asterisk, Dominic's expression softened, and for the first time, Jasmine saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold or calculating. It was warmth. It was understanding. You'll learn, he said quietly. Asterisk, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to keep carrying the weight of the world by yourself. Asterisk, Jasmine looked at him, feeling the weight of his words sinking into her chest. She had spent so long carrying everything on her own, her struggles, her pain, her dreams that never seemed to have a chance. But now, Dominic was offering her a way out, a way to stop carrying everything alone. She could hardly believe it, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized how much she wanted this. She had never allowed herself to dream of a life beyond this mansion. But now, standing in this peaceful garden, she wondered if that life was possible. Asterisk, what would I have to do? Asterisk, she asked, her voice still trembling, but with a hint of hope now. Dominic took a step closer to her, his presence calming, yet commanding. Asterisk, you don't have to do anything, Jasmine. You've already done more than enough. You've worked harder than anyone I know. Now, it's time for you to live the life you deserve. I'll make sure of it. Asterisk, his words were a promise, a reassurance that she hadn't realized she needed until now. Jasmine felt a rush of gratitude, a wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. She had always thought she was invisible, a mere shadow in the grand scheme of things. But Dominic had seen her. He had seen her worth. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered. The tears that had threatened to spill over finally did, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. Dominic reached out and gently touched her arm, his touch warm and steady. You don't need to thank me, he said softly. Asterisk, this is just the beginning. The rest of your life is waiting, Jasmine. You don't have to struggle anymore. Asterisk, Jasmine nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of emotions she couldn't fully explain. She had always been afraid of what might happen if she allowed herself to dream of something more. But now, with Dominic's offer, she realized she didn't have to be afraid anymore. Her dreams weren't impossible, they were within reach. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a different life. A life where she wasn't invisible. A life where she could stand tall, no longer weighed down by the burdens of the past. As Dominic led her back through the mansion, she felt a sense of excitement building inside her. Her life was about to change, and for the first time, she was ready to embrace it. The following days at the Romano estate were unlike any Jasmine had ever experienced. Every morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, her mind swirling with the possibilities Dominic had promised her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope, to dream of a future where she was no longer just a maid, no longer invisible. The mansion still felt the same, elegant, grand, filled with the same opulence and wealth that had always surrounded her. But something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt like a shadow. She was beginning to see the possibility of standing in the light. Dominic kept his word. He didn't mention the conversation they'd had in the garden again, but he didn't need to. Every interaction with him felt different now. He was more present, more aware of her efforts, and he began offering her more responsibility. At first, it was small things, running errands for him, helping with organizing the private meetings he occasionally held in the mansion's library. But as the days passed, the tasks grew larger, and Jasmine found herself stepping into roles she had never imagined she would be trusted with. One afternoon, Dominic asked her to accompany him to one of his business meetings. At first, Jasmine hesitated. She had never been to one of these meetings before, and the idea of entering a room with people who were so far removed from her world filled her with uncertainty. But Dominic's calm reassurance was enough to ease her nerves. Asterisk, You're not just a maid anymore, Jasmine. You're more than that. You've earned this. Asterisk his words echoed in her mind as she followed him through the corridors of the mansion, her heart racing. The meeting was held in a spacious, formal room, adorned with dark wood paneling and luxurious furnishings. Dominic greeted the guests with his usual commanding presence, but there was a warmth in his demeanor that Jasmine hadn't expected. As the discussion began, Jasmine took a seat in the corner of the room, doing her best to remain unnoticed. The men gathered around the table spoke in hushed tones, discussing business dealings Jasmine couldn't fully understand. But what struck her the most was the way Dominic handled himself. He was sharp, confident, and authoritative, but there was an underlying compassion in his words when he spoke of the people he was working with. She couldn't help but notice how different he was from the ruthless Mafia boss she had imagined. He wasn't just a man of power. He was a man who cared, in his own way. After the meeting, Dominic approached her as she was gathering the papers. "You did well today, Jasmine," he said, offering her a small but genuine smile. Asterisk, "You're starting to understand the importance of these things. I see a lot of potential in you." Asterisk Jasmine's chest tightened at his words. She had never been praised for her work before, not in this way. It wasn't just about cleaning or following orders anymore. She was beginning to feel like she was truly valued. But even as she felt the warmth of his approval, doubt crept into her mind. Was she truly ready for this? Was she really capable of stepping into a life that had always seemed so far out of reach? Over the next few weeks, Jasmine continued to work alongside Dominic, gaining more confidence with each passing day. He trusted her with more important tasks, and with each responsibility, she felt herself growing into someone she had never known she could be. The transformation wasn't just in her work, it was in her. She was starting to believe in herself. One evening, as she was preparing dinner for the family, Dominic approached her again. This time, he didn't offer a task or a compliment. He simply sat down beside her as she worked, watching her for a long moment. "Jasmine," he began, his voice low, asterisk, "I want you to know that everything I've offered you, all the opportunities, they're yours if you want them. I've seen the way you've changed, and I believe in you. You don't have to stay in this role forever. You can have more if that's what you want." Asterisk Jasmine felt the weight of his words, and for the first time, she allowed herself to think about what life could look like beyond the mansion. Beyond the role she had always known. What if she could have it all? What if she could be someone more than just the maid in the background? The idea was terrifying, but also exhilarating. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I want to believe that I can," she said softly, meeting his gaze. Asterisk, "But I don't know if I'm ready." Asterisk Dominic nodded, his expression understanding. Asterisk, "You're more than ready, Jasmine. You've always been ready. It's up to you now to decide what comes next." Asterisk in that moment, Jasmine knew she had a choice. A real one. And for the first time in her life, she was ready to make it. The following days at the Romano estate were filled with new possibilities for Jasmine. As each morning passed, the sense of change she had felt deep within her only grew stronger. Dominic's words lingered in her mind like a beacon, lighting a path she had never considered before. He had given her the chance to step into something more than the life she had known, and for the first time, Jasmine felt the weight of that opportunity. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about living, about embracing the future instead of just getting by. Jasmine continued her work at the mansion, but now, there was a different energy in her every step. She carried herself with more confidence, her posture straighter, her movements less hurried. She had always taken pride in her work, but now, it felt like she was doing it with purpose. One evening, as she was organizing the estate's library, Dominic walked in. He had been more present in the past few weeks, and his interactions with her had grown more meaningful. She wasn't just another worker to him anymore. She was someone he respected, someone he trusted. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her as she neatly arranged the books on the shelf. "You've been doing well, Jasmine," he said, his voice low but filled with approval. Jasmine looked up, startled by his sudden appearance, but a smile tugged at her lips. "Thank you, Dominic," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Asterisk, "It's been different, you know? In a good way." Asterisk Dominic nodded, stepping further into the room. Asterisk, "I can see it. You're changing. You're growing. And I want to help you continue down that path." Asterisk his words, simple yet powerful, made Jasmine's heart race. She had never imagined she would hear such things from him, but here they were, hanging in the air between them like a promise. He stepped closer, his presence filling the space. Asterisk, there's something I'd like to offer you, Jasmine. A position, a role where you'll be able to do more than just housekeeping. You're more than capable of handling it, and I think you're ready for the next step. Asterisk, Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Asterisk, a position? What kind of position? Asterisk, she asked, her curiosity piqued, but also tinged with doubt. Dominic met her gaze, his expression serious. Asterisk, I've been thinking about how to integrate you into more of the estate's management. You've shown a great deal of initiative, and I believe you could be an asset in handling some of the estate's internal operations. Asterisk, Jasmine blinked, not sure if she had heard him correctly. Asterisk, are you saying you want me to help run the estate? Asterisk, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Dominic gave a small, reassuring smile. Asterisk, exactly. I know it's a big change, but I've been watching you. You have the potential, Jasmine. You just need to believe in it. I believe in you. Asterisk, for a moment, Jasmine couldn't speak. The idea of moving beyond cleaning and being part of the decision-making process at the estate was overwhelming, but it was also exciting. She had never imagined herself in such a role. But now, with Dominic's encouragement, she could see it. She could see herself in that position. I don't know what to say, she whispered, overwhelmed by the weight of his offer. Dominic stepped closer, his voice gentle. Asterisk, you don't have to say anything yet. Take some time to think about it. This is your future, Jasmine. I want you to make the decision for yourself, not because of me, but because you deserve it. Asterisk, his words were so sincere that Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been given a choice like this before. She had always lived her life by surviving, by accepting the things that came her way. But now, she was being given the chance to take control of her future. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I'll think about it, she finally said, her voice quiet but resolute. Dominic nodded, his smile softening. Asterisk, take all the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, you have my support. Asterisk, as he turned to leave, Jasmine stood there for a long moment, her mind racing with the possibilities. This was more than just a job offer, it was a chance to change her life, to step into a world where she could truly be someone. And for the first time in her life, Jasmine felt like she was ready to take that step. The days following Dominic's offer were filled with a whirlwind of emotions for Jasmine. She had spent so much of her life simply trying to survive, trying to fade into the background, that the idea of stepping into a more prominent role seemed almost surreal. But as she walked through the estate each day, her thoughts swirled with what Dominic had said. Asterisk, you don't have to do this alone. You deserve more than this life. Asterisk, his words echoed in her mind, urging her to think beyond the walls of the mansion, beyond the life she had always known. Jasmine took Dominic's advice to heart. She spent the next few days reflecting on his offer, weighing the possibilities. She had never been given such an opportunity before, a chance to leave behind the life of a maid, to step into something more, something that was hers to control. It was terrifying, but it was also exciting. As she worked, she began to envision herself in this new role. She thought about the responsibilities Dominic had mentioned, managing the estate, overseeing some of the operations. She had always been a hard worker, paying attention to the smallest details, ensuring everything was in its place. Could she really do it? Could she take on such a role? One evening, after a long day of work, Jasmine found herself in the kitchen, preparing dinner for Dominic. As she moved around the kitchen, she realized how much her perspective had shifted. The kitchen had always been a place of routine, a place where she simply followed orders and did what was expected of her. But now, she was thinking about her future in a way she never had before. She was no longer just a maid. She was someone who could contribute, someone who had the potential to be more. As she placed the last dish on the table, she felt a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment. It was small, but it was hers. It was the first time in her life that she had truly taken ownership of her work. When Dominic entered the room, he smiled at her, his eyes filled with approval. It looks wonderful, Jasmine, he said, his voice warm. Jasmine smiled back, feeling a surge of gratitude. Asterisk, thank you, Dominic. I've been thinking about your offer. Asterisk, Dominic nodded, his expression encouraging. Asterisk, I'm glad to hear that. I want you to make the decision that's right for you, Jasmine. You've already proven yourself here. This is just the next step. Jasmine felt her heart race as she spoke. I think I'm ready. I want to take the next step. I want to help you with the estate. Dominic's smile widened, and he placed a hand on her shoulder. I knew you had it in you. The next few weeks passed in a blur as Jasmine began to take on new responsibilities. At first, it was just small tasks, helping organize the estate's affairs, overseeing the daily operations. But soon, Dominic trusted her with more. She began to handle meetings with staff, make decisions about the estate's upkeep, and even coordinate some of the larger events. With each new responsibility, Jasmine's confidence grew. She had never imagined herself in such a position, but now, it felt natural. The change was not just in her work, it was in herself. She walked taller, spoke more confidently, and for the first time, she felt like she was truly seen. One afternoon, Dominic asked her to join him for a meeting with a few of his closest advisors. Jasmine was nervous, but also excited. She had never been in a meeting like this before. As they entered the room, she took a seat at the table, trying to keep her nerves in check. The men around the table spoke in low tones, discussing various matters of business, but Jasmine felt surprisingly at ease. She had learned so much from Dominic in such a short time, and now she was beginning to see how everything fit together. When the meeting ended, Dominic turned to her. You did well today, Jasmine, he said, his voice filled with approval. You're ready for more. Jasmine smiled, feeling a rush of pride. Thank you, Dominic. I couldn't have done it without your support. Dominic nodded, his expression serious. You've earned this, Jasmine. You're not just a maid anymore. You're part of this. Jasmine's heart swelled with emotion as she realized just how far she had come. She had started as an invisible figure in the background, but now, she was standing beside Dominic, making decisions, contributing to the future of the estate. For the first time in her life, Jasmine felt like she had a purpose, like she was truly part of something greater. As the weeks passed, Jasmine continued to grow into her new role. She worked alongside Dominic, handling the estate's affairs, making decisions, and earning the respect of everyone around her. She had come so far, and yet, she knew there was still more to learn, more to experience. But now, she was ready to take on whatever came next, with confidence, strength, and the knowledge that she had the support of the man who had seen her potential when no one else had. Jasmine was no longer just a maid. She was a woman with a future, and it was hers to shape. The days continued to pass in a blur of responsibility and growth for Jasmine. Each morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to tackle the tasks ahead. She had come so far from the woman who had once walked the halls of the Romano estate with her head down, invisible to everyone around her. Now, she was a key player in the estate's operations, making decisions that affected its future, and all the while, Dominic was there, guiding her, supporting her. Their professional relationship had only deepened, and though Jasmine had never expected it, she had come to admire him more than she could have ever imagined. There was something about the way he carried himself, his calm, his confidence, his ability to navigate the complexities of his world with such ease. He had built an empire, yes, but it was more than that. He had created a space where Jasmine could grow, where she could thrive. But even as she flourished in her new role, there were moments when doubt crept into her mind. Was she truly ready for this? Could she really keep up with the demands of the life Dominic had offered her? Could she really live up to his expectations? The questions lingered, but with each passing day, she felt herself becoming stronger, more certain of the path ahead. One evening, after a particularly challenging meeting with the estate's advisors, Dominic called her to his office. As she entered, she found him sitting behind his desk, looking as composed as ever. Jasmine, he said, looking up from the papers in front of him. Come in. I need to talk to you about something important. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was he about to tell her she wasn't cut out for this after all? She took a deep breath and walked into the room, taking a seat across from him. What's on your mind? She asked, her voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at her. Dominic leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him as he studied her. I've been thinking a lot about your progress, Jasmine. You've handled everything I've given you with grace and intelligence. You've proven yourself to be more than capable. Jasmine felt a surge of pride at his words. Thank you, Dominic, she said quietly, grateful for the recognition. Dominic continued, his voice thoughtful. I think it's time for you to take on a bigger role. I want to promote you, give you more responsibility. I need someone who can manage the day-to-day operations of the estate while I focus on other matters. Someone I can trust completely. Someone like you. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. A promotion? She had never expected such an offer. She had worked hard, yes, but this felt like a dream. Are you sure I'm ready for that? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. This is a huge responsibility. Dominic smiled, a rare, soft smile that reached his eyes. I've never been more sure of anything, Jasmine. You've already proven yourself. Now, it's time for you to step into the role you were always meant to have. The words hit her like a wave. She had worked so hard to get here, and now, Dominic was offering her the chance to lead. To take control of her own future in a way she had never imagined. For the first time, Jasmine realized that she was no longer just the maid. She was someone important, someone with the power to shape her own destiny. I won't let you down, she said, her voice steady, filled with determination. Dominic stood up from behind his desk and walked over to where she was sitting. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that was both reassuring and empowering. I know you won't. You've already proven who you are, Jasmine. Now, it's time to show the world. As the days passed, Jasmine's new role took shape. She worked closely with Dominic, overseeing the estate's operations, managing the staff, and making decisions that helped the estate run smoothly. She found herself gaining respect from those around her, not just as a maid, but as someone who had the skills and vision to lead. But even as she embraced her new role, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders. It wasn't just about the estate anymore. It was about her future, her place in this world that she had always been so far removed from. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face them. Dominic was right. She had always been capable of more than she realized. And now, she was finally stepping into the life she had always dreamed of, one that was hers to create, to shape, to live. As Jasmine settled into her new role at the Romano estate, she found herself surrounded by a world that was both familiar and foreign. The mansion's grandeur, the bustling staff, and the quiet power that Dominic exuded had always been a part of her daily life. But now, she was a part of it in a way she had never imagined. She no longer just cleaned the rooms or served the meals. Now she managed the estate, made decisions, and played a key role in shaping its future. The responsibility weighed on her, but it also fueled a sense of purpose she had never known. Dominic had given her the tools to succeed, and now it was up to her to prove that she was worthy of the trust he had placed in her. Each day, Jasmine worked tirelessly, overseeing the estate's operations, ensuring that everything ran smoothly. She found herself communicating with the staff more frequently, gaining their respect, and learning from their experiences. It was challenging at times, especially when issues arose that required quick decision-making, but Jasmine embraced the challenges. Every problem she solved, every task she managed, only made her more confident in her abilities. She was no longer the woman who had hidden in the shadows, too afraid to step into the light. One evening, as she sat at her desk in the office, reviewing the estate's accounts, she felt a sense of pride. The paperwork, once a daunting task she would have avoided, was now something she tackled with determination. She had learned so much in such a short time, and it was beginning to show in the way she carried herself. Her confidence had grown, and with it, her sense of self-worth. Dominic had noticed the changes in her as well. He had always been a man of few words, but he had a way of showing his approval without saying much. The occasional smile, the small nods of acknowledgement, and the quiet praise had become his way of telling her she was on the right path. That evening, as she finished her work, Dominic entered the room, his usual composed demeanor in place. "Jasmine," he said, his voice steady. I've been thinking about the progress you've made. You've done more than I ever expected. Jasmine looked up from her papers, surprised by his words. "Thank you, Dominic," she said softly, unsure of what to say next. I've been working hard, but I still feel like there's so much to learn. Dominic stepped closer, his gaze steady and unwavering. That's the mark of someone who's truly ready to lead, he replied. You don't stop learning, Jasmine. And that's why you've become so valuable to me. You've earned your place here. His words warmed her heart, and for the first time, Jasmine allowed herself to feel truly proud of how far she had come. She had always been afraid of not being enough, of never living up to expectations. But Dominic's faith in her had given her the confidence to push through her doubts and fears. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a leader in her own right. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Jasmine continued to take on more responsibilities, overseeing the estate's events, managing the staff, and making decisions that affected the estate's operations. She worked closely with Dominic, learning from him as she took on more leadership roles. With each passing day, she became more comfortable in her new position. But it wasn't just the work that had changed Jasmine, it was also her relationship with Dominic. Over time, they had grown closer, their professional relationship evolving into something deeper. There was a trust between them, a bond that had developed as they worked side by side. Jasmine had never expected to find herself in this position, working so closely with a man like Dominic. He was powerful, confident, and often distant. But there was a side to him that she had come to understand, his quiet strength, his ability to lead with both authority and compassion. She admired him, but there was also a growing curiosity about him that she couldn't ignore. She wondered what lay beneath the surface, what made him the man he was. One evening, after a particularly long day, Dominic invited her to join him for a quiet dinner in the mansion's dining room. It was a rare occasion for him to invite anyone to dine with him, and Jasmine was both honored and nervous. As they sat down to eat, the conversation shifted from work to more personal matters. They talked about their pasts, their dreams, and the challenges they had faced in life. For the first time, Jasmine saw Dominic as more than just a boss. She saw him as a man with hopes, fears, and a deep sense of responsibility for those around him. Their conversation lingered late into the evening, and when it finally ended, Jasmine felt a deeper connection to him than ever before. It wasn't just about the work anymore. It was about mutual respect, understanding, and the quiet bond that had formed between them. As the evening came to a close, Dominic stood and looked at Jasmine, his expression more relaxed than usual. "You've done well, Jasmine," he said quietly. You've become more than I ever imagined. Jasmine smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that she had never felt before. Thank you, Dominic. I couldn't have done it without you. Dominic nodded, his gaze intense. You'll continue to grow, Jasmine. I have no doubt about that. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way. His words filled her with a sense of pride and hope for the future. Jasmine knew that whatever came next, she was ready. She was no longer the woman who had struggled to make ends meet, lost in the shadows. She was a woman with purpose, a woman who had a future ahead of her, and for the first time in her life, she truly believed in herself. As the weeks passed, Jasmine settled deeper into her role, the transformation she had undergone becoming more apparent with each passing day. The mansion that once felt like a labyrinth of shadows now felt like her domain. She no longer just passed through the hallways unnoticed. Now, she was in charge, guiding the operations of the estate with confidence and poise. Dominic had been right. She was more than capable of handling the responsibilities that had been entrusted to her. As Jasmine took on more challenges, her days became filled with decisions, meetings, and the subtle but steady growth of her confidence. Each new task she handled with grace was another affirmation of her own strength and determination. But even with all the progress she had made, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing. She had achieved so much, but it still felt like there was a part of her that hadn't fully arrived at the place she longed to be. The questions that had once filled her mind, am I enough? Can I really do this? Still lingered in the quiet moments of her day. It was in the rare pauses between tasks that doubt crept in. She often found herself staring out of the window of the office Dominic had given her, gazing at the sprawling grounds below. She had come so far, but she couldn't help but wonder if this was all there was to life. Was she simply going to manage the estate for the rest of her days? The thought was unsettling, and as much as she tried to shake it, the uncertainty remained. One evening, as she wrapped up her work for the day, Dominic entered her office, a small smile on his face. "You're burning the midnight oil again," he remarked, his tone light but observant. Jasmine looked up from her papers, slightly surprised by his presence. "Just trying to finish everything for tomorrow," she replied, smiling back. It's been a busy week. Dominic nodded, stepping further into the room. I know. I've been watching how hard you've been working. But remember, you don't have to do it all on your own. You're not alone in this. Jasmine hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice soft. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough. If I'm really living the life I want to live, or if I'm just going through the motions. Dominic looked at her with a mixture of concern and understanding. You've made incredible progress, Jasmine. But I think I know what you're feeling. You've stepped into this world, but I sense that there's more you want. More you need. His words struck a chord with Jasmine, and for a moment, she felt like he understood her more deeply than anyone else had. I've worked so hard to get here, she continued, her voice shaking slightly. But sometimes I wonder if this is all I'm meant to do. I don't know if I'm truly following my dreams, or if I'm just doing what I think I should be doing. Dominic moved to the chair across from her, sitting down and looking at her with a calm, reassuring gaze. Jasmine, you've been so focused on proving yourself, on making sure everything is perfect, that I think you've lost sight of what you really want. This is your life. You have the power to shape it however you choose. His words were like a light in the dark, and Jasmine felt a wave of emotion rise in her chest. She had been so focused on her role, on making everyone else proud, that she had forgotten to ask herself what she truly wanted. It wasn't just about running the estate or meeting expectations. It was about finding her own purpose, her own happiness. What do I want? Jasmine whispered, as if the question had never fully occurred to her before. Dominic smiled, a gentle, encouraging smile. Only you can answer that. But I believe you've been on the right path all along. You've proven to yourself that you can handle anything. Now it's time to ask yourself what you want to do with that power. The weight of his words settled on her shoulders, and for the first time in a long while, Jasmine felt the stirring of excitement in her heart. She had spent so much time trying to meet expectations, but now, Dominic had given her the freedom to imagine a future that was entirely hers. "Thank you, Dominic," Jasmine said, her voice thick with emotion. I think I finally understand what you've been trying to tell me. I don't have to be someone else's idea of what I should be. I can be me. Dominic's smile widened, and for a moment, there was a rare warmth in his eyes. Exactly. You've already proven that you're more than capable of achieving great things. But don't forget to dream, Jasmine. Don't forget to live for yourself, not just for others. Jasmine nodded, feeling a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. As Dominic left her office that evening, she sat in silence for a long time, thinking about his words. The world that had once seemed so daunting, so out of reach, now felt full of possibility. She had made it this far, and now, with Dominic's encouragement, she realized she had the power to decide what came next. She was ready to take that next step. She was ready to create the life she had always dreamed of. The days after that conversation with Dominic were some of the most transformative for Jasmine. She had spent so much of her life thinking about what others wanted from her, trying to meet expectations that were often not her own. But now, with Dominic's encouragement, she felt a new sense of freedom. It wasn't just about managing the estate anymore or proving herself to anyone. It was about living the life she truly wanted. She had spent the past few weeks reflecting on Dominic's words, considering what kind of future she truly wanted for herself. She no longer felt like she was stuck in a life she didn't choose. The mansion that once felt like a gilded cage now felt like a place where she could make her mark, not just as a worker, but as someone with her own dreams and ambitions. Jasmine began to take more initiative in her role, making decisions with confidence and a sense of ownership. The staff respected her, and she noticed the difference in the way they interacted with her. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a leader in her own right, and the shift was palpable. As she continued to grow in her role, she found herself taking on more complex tasks, things she had never imagined she would be trusted with. One afternoon, as she sat in her office, reviewing the estate's financials, she realized just how far she had come. This was the moment she had been waiting for, when she realized that she was no longer just surviving, but truly thriving. That evening, Dominic stopped by her office to check in. His presence had become a reassuring constant in her life, and she had come to value his feedback more than she had expected. Asterisk, how's everything going? Asterisk, he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Jasmine looked up from her papers, smiling at him. Better than ever, she said, her voice filled with quiet pride. Asterisk, I'm starting to feel like this is where I'm meant to be. Asterisk, Dominic's smile softened as he stepped into the room. Asterisk, I knew you would. You've always had it in you, Jasmine. But you've done more than just prove your worth to me. You've proven it to yourself. Asterisk, Jasmine's heart swelled with gratitude at his words. He had always been supportive, but there was something about hearing him acknowledge her growth that made it feel real. Thank you, Dominic, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Asterisk, I couldn't have done it without you. Asterisk, Dominic nodded, his expression serious. Asterisk, you've earned everything you have. But I want you to remember something. Asterisk, Jasmine looked at him, curious. Asterisk, what's that? Asterisk, this is just the beginning, he said, his gaze steady. Asterisk, you've come a long way, but there's still so much more for you to accomplish. Don't stop now. You have the power to create the life you want. Asterisk, his words hit her with the weight of truth. Jasmine had worked so hard to get to this point, but she realized that the journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And now, for the first time in her life, she felt ready for whatever came next. The next few weeks passed quickly, filled with new challenges and opportunities. Jasmine took on more responsibility, overseeing larger projects around the estate and making decisions that affected not just the day-to-day operations, but the future of the entire Romano family business. She worked closely with Dominic, who had become more than just a boss to her. He was a mentor, a guide, and, in many ways, a friend. As their working relationship deepened, Jasmine found herself beginning to trust him more, opening up to him about her hopes and dreams in a way she never had with anyone before. One evening, as they sat together discussing the estate's future plans, Dominic turned to her, his expression thoughtful. You're ready for the next step, he said, his voice low. Asterisk, I want you to start making decisions on your own, without me. You've proven you can handle it. Asterisk, Jasmine felt a surge of pride at his words, but also a flutter of nervousness. She had always worked under his guidance, but now, she was going to have to step out on her own. I won't let you down, she said, her voice steady. Despite the nerves swirling in her chest, Dominic smiled, his eyes full of confidence. Asterisk, I know you won't. You've already shown me that you're more than capable of anything you put your mind to. Asterisk, the weight of his trust in her settled on her shoulders, and Jasmine realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for. She was ready to step into her own, to take the reins of her future and shape it according to her own desires. The following days were filled with decisions and meetings, as Jasmine began to make her own mark on the estate. She faced challenges, of course. There were always obstacles when stepping into new territory, but with each hurdle she overcame, her confidence grew. She realized that she had become the woman she had always dreamed of being. The woman who wasn't afraid to take risks, to make decisions, and to live her life on her own terms. One evening, as she stood in the mansion's garden, looking out over the grounds, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far, and now, for the first time, she could see the endless possibilities in front of her. The life she had always wanted was no longer a distant dream. It was right here, within her reach. And with Dominic's support, she knew she could achieve anything. As the weeks turned into months, Jasmine's life continued to change in ways she had never imagined. The estate was no longer just a place where she worked. It had become a reflection of the life she had begun to build for herself. Each day, she felt herself growing stronger, more confident, and more capable. She had stepped into the role of a leader, a decision-maker, and a trusted advisor to Dominic. And with each responsibility she took on, her sense of purpose solidified. The mansion, once a place where she felt invisible, now felt like her home. She had earned the respect of the staff, and even the guests who visited the estate began to recognize her authority. But with all the success came moments of doubt. Jasmine often found herself questioning whether she truly belonged in this world, wondering if she had what it took to maintain the success she had achieved. It was in those quiet moments, when she was alone in her office or walking through the halls, that the old fears resurfaced. Was she really ready for all of this? Could she continue to live up to the expectations placed on her? One evening, after a particularly stressful day filled with decisions that had required her to step outside her comfort zone, Dominic entered her office. He looked as calm and composed as ever, but Jasmine could see the concern in his eyes. "You've been working hard," he said, his voice gentle but firm. You need to take a break. Don't burn yourself out. Jasmine looked up from her desk, surprised by his words. She had always prided herself on her work ethic, but lately, it felt like there was always more to do, more to prove. "I'm fine," she replied, but the exhaustion in her voice betrayed her. Dominic sat down across from her, his gaze unwavering. You're not fine. I can see it. You've been pushing yourself too hard, and you're starting to lose sight of the bigger picture." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. She had been so focused on proving herself, on living up to Dominic's expectations, that she had forgotten why she started this journey in the first place. She had come to the estate to find herself, to carve out a future that was her own, but somewhere along the way, she had lost sight of that goal. "I'm just trying to make sure everything runs smoothly," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to let anyone down." Dominic leaned forward, his expression softening. You're not letting anyone down, Jasmine. You've done more than anyone could have asked. But you can't keep carrying everything on your own. You need to take care of yourself too. His words hit her harder than she expected, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel vulnerable. She had been so focused on her responsibilities that she had neglected her own well-being. The weight of it all was starting to wear her down, and she hadn't even realized it. "I don't know how to stop," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to let go of the fear that if I stop, everything will fall apart. Dominic's eyes softened with understanding. That's the thing, Jasmine. You've already built something incredible here. You've earned your place, and nothing is going to fall apart. You've learned to trust yourself, and now, you need to trust that everything you've worked for will continue to thrive. Jasmine took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She had worked so hard to get to this point, but in doing so, she had forgotten the importance of balance. She needed to learn to take a step back, to trust herself and her decisions. "I don't know if I can do that," she said quietly. I'm afraid if I let go, I'll lose everything. Dominic smiled, a rare, reassuring smile that made her heart swell. You're not going to lose anything, Jasmine. You've built something strong. Trust in that, and trust in yourself. The words resonated deep within her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Maybe it wasn't about always being perfect, about always pushing herself to the limit. Maybe it was about finding balance, trusting the path she had already carved, and letting go of the fear that had been holding her back. The following days were a mix of reflection and action. Jasmine took Dominic's advice to heart, allowing herself time to rest and recharge when needed. She spent more time in the garden, taking walks through the estate, reconnecting with herself. It wasn't easy. She had spent so many years caught up in the hustle, in the pressure to succeed. But slowly, she began to let go of the constant need to prove herself. With each step, Jasmine found a sense of peace she hadn't known she needed. She was still the same woman, still the same leader who had helped build the estate into what it was today, but she was also learning to be kinder to herself, to trust in her abilities without constantly questioning them. As the days went by, Jasmine felt a deeper sense of purpose settle within her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had everything she needed to succeed. It wasn't about being perfect or constantly achieving. It was about balance, trust, and the confidence to know that, no matter what came next, she was ready to face it. As Jasmine embraced the changes in her life, she began to see the world around her with new eyes. The mansion, once a symbol of her struggles, now felt like a place of possibilities. Every room, every hallway, no longer held the weight of her past. They were now spaces where she could build her future. It was an exhilarating feeling, knowing that she had the power to shape her own destiny. She no longer feared what was ahead. Instead, she embraced it. The work had become second nature, and with the responsibilities that Dominic had entrusted her, Jasmine felt herself stepping into a role that was not just about the estate's operations, but about her growth as a person. She had learned to trust herself and her decisions, something she had never truly done before. As much as the job had defined her for so long, it was no longer just about the tasks at hand. It was about creating something that was hers, something that she could be proud of. Yet, despite all the success, Jasmine still found herself thinking about Dominic more often than she expected. Over the months, they had developed a professional relationship rooted in mutual respect and trust, but there were moments when Jasmine caught herself wondering if there was something more to it. She had come to value his mentorship and guidance, but there were times when she felt the weight of his presence in a way that went beyond professional admiration. She knew that he was a man of few words, but when he spoke to her, there was a quiet intensity in his voice that made her heart race. She often wondered if he saw her the way she saw him, more than just a boss, but as someone who had helped her see her own worth. One evening, after a particularly long day, Jasmine was finishing up some paperwork in her office when Dominic walked in. The usual calm in his eyes was replaced with something more, something softer, more thoughtful. "I've been meaning to talk to you," he said, his voice low but steady. Jasmine looked up from her work, surprised. What about? About you," he replied, stepping closer to her desk. You've been doing an exceptional job, Jasmine. You've handled everything with grace and competence. I know I don't always say it, but I notice. I see how far you've come. His words hit her harder than she expected. For so long, she had been focused on her work, on proving herself to him and to everyone around her. But now, hearing him acknowledge her growth in such a direct way, it felt different. "Thank you, Dominic," she said softly, her voice catching in her throat. I couldn't have done it without your support. Dominic smiled, but there was something more in his expression, a flicker of something deeper, something that made Jasmine's heart skip a beat. You've earned it, Jasmine. You've earned all of this. But there's something else I wanted to tell you. Jasmine's breath caught. There was something in his tone, something that made her feel like this conversation was about to take a different turn. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic paused, his gaze steady. I think it's time for you to take the next step, Jasmine. You've done incredible things for the estate, but you've also proven to me that you're capable of so much more. I want you to consider something. Jasmine's heart raced as she waited for him to continue. What do you mean? She asked, the uncertainty creeping into her voice. Dominic took a step closer to her, his presence overwhelming, but in a way that felt comforting, secure. I want you to take on a bigger role here, something more than just managing the estate. I want you to be my partner in this. I think you have the vision and the leadership to help take this place to the next level. We could make it something incredible, Jasmine. Together. Jasmine was stunned. The words felt like a dream, something she had never considered but now, suddenly, seemed within reach. She had always known Dominic as a leader, a powerful figure who commanded respect. But now, he was offering her a partnership, something that went beyond the work they had done together. It was a gesture of trust, a recognition of everything she had become. Are you serious? She whispered, barely able to process what he was saying. Dominic nodded, his expression unwavering. I'm serious. You've earned this, Jasmine. And I believe in you. I want us to work side by side, not just as boss and employee, but as equals. I want you to be a part of something bigger. For a long moment, Jasmine didn't know what to say. Her mind raced with a million thoughts, but one thing was clear. This was more than just an offer. It was an opportunity to finally take control of her own future, to shape it the way she had always dreamed. She had spent so long working for others, trying to prove her worth. But now, Dominic was offering her a chance to prove something to herself. After what felt like an eternity, Jasmine finally spoke, her voice steady and filled with determination. I accept, she said, a smile forming on her lips. I'm ready. Dominic's face softened, and for the first time in a long time, Jasmine saw a look of genuine pride in his eyes. I knew you would be, he said quietly. Together, We'll make this place everything it can be. Asterisk as the evening wore on, Jasmine realized that this was the beginning of something new for her. She had found a purpose beyond just managing the estate. She had found a partnership with someone who believed in her, someone who saw her as more than just a maid, but as an equal. And for the first time in her life, Jasmine felt truly seen. She wasn't just stepping into a role. She was stepping into a future she had always dreamed of, one where she was no longer just surviving, but truly living. In the days that followed, Jasmine and Dominic's partnership began to take shape. The estate had always been a symbol of power, wealth, and tradition, but now, with Jasmine by his side, it began to feel like a true reflection of their shared vision. The work they did together was not just about managing the estate, but about creating something lasting, a legacy that neither of them could have built alone. As they worked closely, Jasmine found herself stepping into roles that once seemed beyond her reach. She was no longer the woman who kept the house running in the background, unnoticed. She was a force, an integral part of the estate's success. With every decision, she felt more confident, more capable of shaping her own future. Dominic had always been a man of few words, but he didn't need to speak often to show his approval. The way he looked at her, the quiet gestures of respect, were more than enough. Jasmine knew she had earned his trust. She had proven herself time and again, and now, their partnership was stronger than ever. There were moments, of course, when doubt would creep in. It wasn't easy to move from one role to another, especially in such a high-pressure environment. But every time she felt unsure, every time she questioned whether she was doing the right thing, Dominic was there to remind her of what she had already achieved. Asterisk, you're doing great, Jasmine. Trust yourself. You've already proven that you have what it takes. Asterisk, his words became her anchor, and she began to trust herself in ways she had never done before. As the months passed, the estate flourished under their combined efforts. The once stagnant operations were now running smoothly, and the staff had grown to respect Jasmine not just as Dominic's partner, but as a leader in her own right. The confidence she had built wasn't just in the decisions she made, but in the way she carried herself, poised, sure of her place in the world. But even with all the success, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing. She had built this life, this career, but now she had to ask herself, what did she want beyond this? What were her dreams now that she had the freedom to pursue them? She had spent so many years chasing success and approval, but now, she realized, it was time to start dreaming again. One evening, after a long day of meetings and discussions, Jasmine found herself standing by the window of her office, looking out at the estate's expansive grounds. The sun had just set, casting a golden hue over the garden. She had come so far from the woman who had once scrubbed floors and lived in the shadows. She had built a life for herself, one that was grounded in hard work, but now, she wanted something more, something that was truly her own. As she stood there lost in thought, Dominic entered the room, his presence as steady and reassuring as ever. It's a beautiful evening, he said, his voice low but warm. Jasmine turned to him, offering a small smile. Asterisk, it is. I was just thinking about everything that's changed. Asterisk, Dominic stepped closer, his gaze meeting hers. Asterisk, I know you've been doing a lot of thinking lately. You've accomplished so much, Jasmine. But I can see that you're searching for something more. Asterisk, his words hit her deeply, as though he could see into her soul. Jasmine nodded slowly. I think I am, she said softly. Asterisk, I've worked so hard to get here, but now, I'm starting to wonder what's next. What do I really want? I've built this life, this career, but now, I don't know what my dreams are anymore. Asterisk, Dominic studied her for a moment, his eyes filled with understanding. Asterisk, that's the thing about dreams, Jasmine. They evolve. What you wanted 5 years ago may not be what you want today, and that's okay. The important thing is that you're open to finding your next step, and you're not afraid to take it. Asterisk, his words felt like a release for Jasmine, as though the weight of her doubts had finally been acknowledged. For so long, she had been so focused on proving herself, on meeting expectations, that she had forgotten to dream. Now, Dominic was giving her the permission she hadn't known she needed, to dream again. I don't know what that next step is yet, Jasmine admitted, her voice a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Asterisk, but I'm ready to find out. I want to build something for myself, not just for the estate. Something that's mine. Asterisk Dominic smiled, his eyes warm with pride. Asterisk, I know you will, Jasmine. You've always had that spark. Now it's time to let it burn brighter than ever. Asterisk as they stood there, the world outside slowly darkening. Jasmine felt a deep sense of clarity wash over her. She wasn't just a part of Dominic's world anymore. She had her own place in it, and her own dreams to chase. The future, once so uncertain, was now full of promise. The steps she would take next were hers to decide, and she knew she was ready. She had the strength, the courage, and the support to turn her dreams into reality. And for the first time in her life, Jasmine knew that whatever she chose, it would be the right path for her. The journey was far from over, but she was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. She was ready to face it, with confidence and determination. And this time, it wasn't just about building a life for others. It was about building the life she had always wanted for herself.